The day it all changed for me when we just started making like content. That shift kind of came through like therapy and different entities. I started reading a ton of books, and that's kind of just been the shift that I had, a self-awareness journey and creating a better relationship with myself. And once I started like changing, I just started chasing positive energy. And it's crazy how much life actually shows you the way if you're conscious enough to pay attention to the good energy and avoid the bad energy.
Welcome to the Curious Corner, where we unravel the stories behind our guests through the lens of curiosity. In today's episode, I'm joined by Zachary Owings, who is an ex-professional baseball player, a podcast host, and works at VaynerX, one of the leading digital marketing agencies. Zachary, thank you for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a real pleasure to be on. I know we've communicated through like Twitter, a little TikTok live. So it's really fun to kind of, get on here and have a long conversation, get to learn about you. Obviously, I love what you're doing with the podcast. I love anybody who makes a podcast and starts to really make content, because I remember when I first started how much of a journey it's been in 2 years of doing it. And I also remember when I first started where I like wish I had people that were like a little bit in the process, but not like too far to like help me, give me pointers. So I'm happy to join. And honestly, like thankful, to be honest. I love having long conversations with people. So this is fun.
Yeah, no, sure. I really appreciate you coming on. And as you said, I know we've kind of engaged a lot over the past year or so on various platforms. And the way this came about is you replied to, I think, one of the Reels, first episode with Ezra Fuller, and you're just like, I want to be on. And, we're here now, we're making it happen. And yeah, I'm glad likewise that we finally got this chance to have like proper one-on-one together.
I'm pumped about it. The Ezra show really got to me because, I really love people who have, I like to call it the hard conversations, because they matter so much at the end of it. Especially when you're at a young age, when you're in your 20s trying to have these like hard conversations, people are like, why are we doing this? When it's like, these like 30, 40, 50-year-old people who've actually lived life. But I actually think that's kind of the unique change of all these like early Gen Z kids, where they're like a lot more educated because we grew up with technology. We want the answers. And I think we're getting to a place that we're cool with having the hard conversation. We're cool with therapy. We're cool with telling people we're not okay. Now it's getting a little blown out of proportion with everybody thinks they're not okay, when it's really just like life's fucking hard. But I think we're getting to a space and place, and seeing you and Ezra have those conversations, and especially Ezra kind of open up about his background and also being a Michigan boy. So once again, just happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Very happy to have you on, and like I say, to dive into this conversation more. So I guess, it'd be great to give your audience some context. Maybe if they're hearing about Zachary Owings for the first time, who is Zachary Owings?
5 years ago, my life was consumed with sports, specifically baseball. I played college baseball at Eastern Michigan. From there, played professional baseball with the Miami Marlins, played 3 years doing that. COVID hit, and me and my brother Joshua was the first time we really spent time together in about 6-7 years. Always paid attention to him. I have a lot of love for my brothers, like they're my best friends. But it's the first time we really got to spend time together. And COVID, all we did was like work out and hang out. And getting to do that, we got to talk, get to know each other, and we kept going back to like, we need to stick together. We need to build something. We need to create a legacy. We have to do something different than everybody else in the family has done, to not for us to stick out, but to leave something behind that actually matters, and to set up our kids. That was like the main thing. So then we started doing content creation for small businesses in the area. It was cool. It was kind of like the hard lessons that we learned doing business, doing content, learned a lot doing it. We pretty much killed the business in a way, to then start making our own content, which born The Real O Show. The Real O Show is a deep dive history lifestyle brand. Obviously, it's two brothers. We vlog. We have a show that drops twice a week. And for my day job, I work for VaynerX, and I work very closely with a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, and doing a lot of things through the different entities And obviously getting to learn from Gary is super special because he's the one that hired me off a DM. So that kind of sprung on to like really changing my life, and that kind of was like a full circle moment. But yeah, and then now we're just really just trying to grow the Real O Show brand, and obviously still working with Gary and trying to learn how to build an empire.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, multiple pillars happening at the same time and just kind of like juggling. But would love to touch a bit more on the sports side, I guess, to begin with. As you said, since you used to play baseball professionally, and I think this came from a LinkedIn post actually, but you said that you played every game like it was your last. So my question is, how do you think the pressure you put on yourself as an athlete has influenced your approach to challenges outside of sports?
I would say sports was really heavy. Like, people think like sports is like a game and it's like an escapism. For me, it was the complete opposite. And obviously that pressure sprung from like my parents and specifically my dad, which is probably where that post came from. My dad was really hard on me, was really hard on all my brothers. Took me a long time to understand that like he wishes he had a dad that was hard on him about sports because his dad didn't give a fuck about sports. And so he gave a ton of fuck about sports. So it was like kind of this like reverse. And it took me so long to understand that. And I was like, does he hate me? Like, and the reason I played every game like it was my last was because if I didn't have a good game, it was like the end of the world, which made me become an incredibly hard worker, made me care a ton. And honestly, at the end of the day, it made me a better sports player because I was like, this is all that matters. And that wasn't. And honestly, might have been the reason why I kind of burnt out with baseball. So there was a lot of pressure like that. And the reason I liked content creation business was because failing was like the way to succeed. You make a bad video on content, you learn a lot more from it. You do something in business, you like I was talking about working with other small businesses doing daily content creation, that business fell on its face. And so I really fell in love with the failing outside of sports because for me, sports was my life, which is like weird for somebody to say looking back on it now because usually like people are like once you get out of college and you get a big boy job like that's life, it's way easier or it's way harder than it is playing sports, where like to me it's like the reverse psychology, like this is the healthiest, happiest, most free I've ever felt in my life. And I still put a ton of pressure on myself. I still want to make good content. That pressure then comes into being really consistent making content, but that pressure doesn't, it's not the same, but the work ethic, the habits that I learned through the pressure of playing sports makes me dominate in work, in content creation. I watch people all the time who make content. I don't care if they have millions of followers. I truly believe what me and my brother are doing, it's better. And it's crazy to like say that, but like I think that's part of playing sports. Like I was playing professional baseball in the minor leagues. So it's like all that kind of like having the confidence, not being delusional, like confident, like in putting in the reps has 100% translated to like this business content world that I live in now.
Yeah, love that. And as you said, a lot of, I guess, things you've learned from the world of sports and then transferred into the world of business and entrepreneurship. But I guess I'm curious to know, like, what's been, I guess, like one of the bigger psychological shifts you had to make doing that transition from sports to business?
Well, the biggest psychological shift is that I can't use my dad as my motivation. Truth be told, sports to me, a lot of the push, a lot of the struggle was always to like prove my dad wrong, but also at the same time make him proud and like get that head nod to him being like you're awesome, you're great, you're doing a great job. Like those, like what most kids chase from their parents. That now when I'm in such a different space and place than he's ever been, that like he doesn't even really understand, it's 100% on me. And now this has kind of been like the evolution of like the last 2 years with the content creation is I've had to become a completely different person than I was 3 years ago. You could talk to my high school friends and being like, how much has Zachary changed since you like knew him in high school or like early on in college? They'd be like, I can't recognize him. So, it's really been like this self awareness journey I've been on the last 3 years, developing the new Zachary, the better Zachary, the healthier Zachary. And truth be told, it's all on me. It's all on me. And I love it. There's days where I'm like, man, I wish I didn't really give a fuck about working out or making content or pushing myself at work to go above and beyond, to read, journal, like all that stuff. Like I wish there was days where I'm like, I don't care about it. I can just go do whatever, but I physically can't. Like it's in my like core, which is stem from sports, where like the reason I succeeded in sports is because I was always working. And so these people that were super, super talented, when they would take days off, I was getting better than them. And that's kind of how like this part of like the business and content creation is like, I always try to be working so I can get to the top on whatever it is. Like, so it's just like that's kind of how I transitioned it. But like to answer the question, like in short, it's really just like a self awareness journey and creating a better relationship with myself.
Yeah, I love that. And, I'd love to dive a bit more into that journey. And, like I said, past 3 years, you feel like you've made this, like, I guess, Zach 2.0, right? And before then, you obviously had like some personal struggles and just, I guess, trying to find that sense of new fulfillment and purpose after leaving sports. So, like, what was that moment of realization for you when you just like realized, like, this is where I want my life to go?
I would say it was well before I played my last season of baseball. It kind of comes back to this COVID moment. I think the day it all changed for me was, man, I would say it had to be when we just started making like content for these businesses. So, that switch kind of happened, throughout COVID. And I know COVID is kind of mixed, whether it's 2, 3 years. I always kind of related to like the first like year and a half as like when I really started to like find out who I was and really started making the shift. And that shift kind of came through like therapy and different entities. I started reading a ton of books. I stopped watching TV. Like everybody's always asking me if I've seen this fucking new show on Netflix. No, I haven't. I have not. Sorry. I don't really spend much time doing that. I kind of watch like YouTube or I read, and that's kind of just been the shift that I had. I started reading these books, these self help books, financial education books. Yeah, and I just started seeing how these like business people move and these successful people moved. And I'm like, I'm not moving like that. I'm not doing that. So like I need to change. And once I started like changing a little bit, it kind of was like that fire and that energy that we kind of talked about. But I think before we started recording, I just started chasing positive energy. And it's crazy how much life actually shows you the way if you're conscious enough to pay attention to the good energy and avoid the bad energy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something I've probably experienced as well, is just, like you say, trying to focus on the positives and just kind of build up those good habits and obviously do it consistently. And then over time, it'll compound. And yeah, like say, to a point now where your high school friends are just like, this isn't the Zachary we grew up with. And
I would love to like one day get a conversation on wax and just ask them questions about who I was, because like to be honest, like I've forgotten a lot of who I was. Like part of when when you become like reborn in a way, you kind of kill your old self. There's chapters in my life like I'm on like their third or fourth version of Zachary. Like as I like think about like the pivotal changes in my life, and that last Zachary, I remember a little bit, but like the last Zachary before then, I like don't remember at all. So I would love to one day ask my friends, but even like hitting on like what you're talking about with habits. I think as a society, me included, we underestimate compound interest, even though it's like the eighth wonder of the world. I think that's a real thing. That habits, you don't see anything for 30 days, and then that 31st day, it's a noticeable change. And I think we lose track of that with good habits, eating healthy, working out, meditating, journaling, therapy, where like if it doesn't work the first day, we're like, this doesn't work. If it doesn't work the first week, we're like, this doesn't work. I'm wasting my time. And the reason why successful people become successful is because they stay persistent doing the same thing over and over again. And they know it's the right thing. And then along the way, they get rewarded or these reminders that they're actually doing the right thing. But you have to work and kind of go against everything your body wants you to do.
Yeah, 100%. Why do you think so many people, especially in today's world, struggle to find their purpose?
I don't think people are looking hard enough for it.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Kind of going back into like the good energy, bad energy. I don't think people are conscious enough to notice when they do things that make them happy and they don't pay enough attention to things that make them sad. And they're like, why am I sad? Why am I tired? Why do I not want to do anything? Why do I hate waking up Monday morning to go to work? Why do I love Friday afternoon? People don't pay enough attention to it. Like for someone who up until I started like actively reading books, like consistently trying every day, whether it's one page or 20 pages consistently the last like 4 years, is I didn't ever want to fucking read. I read 3 books until I was like 23. You know what I'm saying? In that year I started reading books during COVID, I probably was reading like 2 a month. Like to have that change is a completely different change. Like I started reading books. The answers are in books. The answers are in videos if you can't read on YouTube. You can find somebody you like that can like deep dive this book in 27 minutes so you don't have to spend a month reading it. Like the answers are out there. And I think by reading, it really opened up the doors like on a different conscious level than I've ever experienced ever in my life. And then through that, being conscious, you look at the world completely different. Then I started paying attention to energy more, where I'm like, wow, when I think about baseball or I play baseball, I am like miserable. I'm sad. I'm an angry person. When I'm making content, when I'm talking business, when I'm having great conversations with great people, I'm like, I could do this forever. Like I forget to drink water. And I think in that is like the conscious thing that I have that I'm like, well, okay, when I feel that way, that's my passion. That's what I'm supposed to do. That is what I'm put on this earth to do. Because I'm not put on this earth to be miserable and sad. I don't think anybody is. Obviously, there's jobs that like people have to do for a certain amount of time before they make their next move or they get a promotion for sure. Eating shit is the best thing you could do. If you have the goal in mind that you're like, I'm doing this to get here, not I'm doing this because I don't know what else to do. It's just a different shift. I think the reason successful people are successful is they're just more conscious.
Almost feels like sometimes you speak to yourself in like a third person or self analysis of yourself and really just kind of taking a bit of a step back and just be like, why do you feel that way? And just kind of like breaking it down. And
So true.
yeah, just giving yourself, I guess, that awareness and time.
Me and my brother actually just talked about that on a show. We were referencing the Joe Rogan and Cat Williams podcast that obviously was like massive, and Cat Williams is in the news for a lot of crazy things, whether it's true or not. And the one thing that I was talking about from him that I thought Cat Williams did a great job is zooming out like about life. And I call it the macro. If you look at your life from the macro, you realize your bad days, your bad weeks, your bad months, even a bad year actually means nothing. But when you look at it from the micro, a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, a bad year can be like a death sentence. And I think through being able to take that step back, which has been like a trained thing for me, therapy, meditation, working out, just being conscious, I found out when I'm super stressed that I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. And I like feel like I'm like getting angry, but not in like I want to yell at somebody, that I want to like disappear, like just like close my computer and like go do something completely different, is when I'm not zooming out enough about the bigger picture. And I think the best advice I could ever give somebody is, one, set massive goals that take a long time to reach, and then work backwards from there. What are like the 10 things you have to do to get there? Like start with the end goal and work backwards. I would say that. And then zooming out. Like when you have these massive goals, a bad day, bad week, bad month, doesn't affect you. It's part of the process. But when you're so locked in on like, this is the biggest day of my life, I have to have a good day, the pressure becomes so much because March 13th, 2024 means fucking nothing. When 80 years from now means nothing. Like, I'm going to remember this day and be like, bro, I talked to Ben and we had a great conversation. When you're getting hundreds of thousands, millions of downloads on your podcast, I'm like, I was his 5th podcast, just so everybody knows. I will do that. But, I think from the average person, we put too much weight on days, weeks, and months when it's really like decades that matter.
It's very easy to get stuck in your ways of if you have been having bad days, weeks, months consecutively, then it's very easy to get stuck and almost like I call it like limbo, but you almost just feel like you're stuck in your ways, right? And a lot of people, want to try and get out, but there's no like quick fix because naturally, I guess they develop bad habits or something else. If someone listening right now is kind of feel like they're stuck in limbo and they're trying to find their sense of purpose, what would you tell them?
Write down everything you did the day that made you incredibly upset, mad, stressed, felt like you're in limbo. Like, write down your daily. And then I bet through that, you could go by and be like, okay, I love doing this. I hated doing these other 9 things. Okay. Then by process of elimination, what can you eliminate right now? Can you stop eating bad food? Can you go to the gym? Can you go for a walk? Can you meditate? Can you journal? Can you start reading? Can you cut off your mom, dad, your friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend who's causing you stress and problems and making you miserable? Like, what can you cut off now? Okay, you can cut off, I guarantee you can cut off 4 of the 9 things immediately. So already right there, you're already out of the limbo. Like, you're already getting in the process. Through that, you have to go to work. You have to spend time alone by yourself and figure out why you're upset. Figure out what makes you happy. And it's not easy. It is not. Like, I think the best place you can honestly be as a human, the most dangerous place you can be as a human, is when you have nothing to lose and you're at the bottom. And you're like, I will do anything to change my situation. Whereas humans are like, oh, I don't want to fail. I don't want to be at the bottom. When, like, for me, the best thing that ever happened to me was hitting rock bottom and being like, I'm done feeling this way. I'm going to do anything to change it. But it's all up here. Like, at the end of the day, I imagine someone who's going through a really hard time is probably from outside judgment and not their own judgment. So then it becomes, what's your relationship with yourself? How can you love yourself more? And at the end of the day, when you lay your head on the pillow, be like, I don't care who likes me. I don't care who's in my life. I got me. And that became a super pivotal thing with me. I was like, I don't need anybody. Like, I can take care of myself. I enjoy myself by myself. And through that process, you'll find really good people that actually want the best for you. And that for me is my brother Joshua. He was with me at the worst. Now, as I've like gotten better and I'm like hitting my stride a little bit, he's right there with me. And I know no matter what happens, I have him. And that's how you find real friends. Whereas, like, too much in life, we want that superficial friend and it causes us to become a different person. We start to like cater to that person when it's like, you don't cater to anybody. Fall in love with yourself and build from there.
Definitely personally resonate with the thought around like you have nothing to lose. And like in my old job that I hated there 3.5 years, that was definitely my rock bottom. And there's a song that I'd play very often, and it was just like, you've got nothing to lose. And that was part of my mentality shift. And like the whole thing from there was just like one day at a time.
I'm getting like goosebumps right now thinking about like when I was at rock bottom. I was like, man, I was fucking dangerous. Because it's like, you would do anything. You would do any. I was willing to do anything to change my circumstances. Anything. Through that, started making content, started going to therapy, started putting my life on the internet, like on LinkedIn. Like, I got some like deep ass posts that like would make some people uncomfortable, and it made me uncomfortable to post it. But I'm like, Vulnerability is strength. Putting out your problems, your insecurities for everybody to see is actually the biggest strength that no one talks about. Because if I put out that like my dad was making me miserable, hating my life, and put a ton of pressure on me and my brothers, and I hated him for it for years, you can't make fun of me for that. I put it out. I put it out. But it hurts people that they don't put out their insecurities or their darkest fears. When somebody else puts it out, they're like, oh my God, they shell up. The greatest thing somebody can do is literally face your fears, attack it head on, and literally put it out there for everybody. That was like my pivotal shift. I've had a lot of deep posts, but I remember one like vividly that I got a ton of people like from like my childhood that reached out to me, and it was really specifically about like my dad and like how he put pressure on me and my brothers, and I like hated him forever for it, and really it was like why I left. That was so uncomfortable to put out, and then I still put it out. And like ever since I've done that, I'm like, well, if anybody saw it or anybody looks at my post, they're gonna see that and know like, oh shit, like that's deep. And you want to know what the crazy thing is like when I started making content and doing all this, I was like, man, I'm at such a bad place that I just want to help one person. The power of putting out things is so crucial because you don't know who's going to grab onto it. And everybody's so worried about like getting 1 million followers or 1 million likes or 100,000 comments, when it's like, if it helps one person, you're making the world a better place.
Completely agree. And it's definitely the mindset I have with a podcast. And like I say, if one person listening right now takes away something and they find it valuable, and then it has an impact on their life in a positive way, then it's worth it.
I'm going to give you some flowers. And then when you help that one person, you have to keep doing it, because then you're playing with house money. I've had so many people reach out to me and be like, you're helping me, that like, I can't stop now. Because it's like, if I've helped one person, 10 people, 50 people, like, fuck, I know I can help 100. And then it's like, you help 100, and then you're like, man, I know I can do like 1,000. It's just, you're playing with house money. You've helped the one person, like you got to help more. There's so many people out here that need this podcast, that need real conversations. And I'm going to push you on it to make sure you keep doing this, because I have incredibly enjoyed this conversation. And like from afar, I love what you're about. But like, we have to help as many people as we can. Like, the only way a life is worth it is when you help people. It's not greedy. Like, through helping people, you're going to make more money than you've ever imagined. And then when you get the money is really just a transfer of time. Because money in this day and age means absolutely nothing. It's fake. They print it. Doesn't matter. Has zero value. Money is a transfer of other people's time. So as you make money, you can then help other people through that. And then it's just this cycle. Like, when you help out people, the universe is always keeping score. Always. That's why karma exists, positive and negative. When you're a bad person, the universe is going to bring around bad shit to happen to you. Happened to me. Humbled the fuck out of me. And even like to this day, I'm like, when bad stuff happens, I'm like, ooh, I probably deserve that from 4 years ago. Like, I got to eat that. Like, that's on me. But when good things happen, I'm like, fuck, I've given so much good to the world. Like, I deserve that. Now it's like, how do you keep it coming? It's all about building up this karma and good energy, because the universe is all about attraction. When you put out positive energy, when you help people, you put out these tough conversations that most 20-year-olds would not be talking about, or it's too hard for them to comprehend because they haven't went to war with themselves to figure it out. One day they will grab onto it. Like, you're going to say one word, I'm going to say one word, and that person's going to be like, oh, they're right. You're eventually going to find 10, 20, 100 people that love you so much, Ben, and that love this podcast, that are then going to become your biggest marketers by word of mouth and making their friends listen to certain episodes. And they're going to be like, I love this dude. And like, that's the power of like the cycle that the universe brings around. So like, that's like my biggest thing for anybody. Like, chase positive energy and be a good person. And I promise you something good's going to happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, I think a lot of people maybe do want to have an impact on the world, but they need to help themselves first, right? And like I say, like, you need to fall in love with yourself first. And then once you fell in love with yourself and you're in a good place, then you can help people.
You couldn't have said it better. Like, that was my thing with me. Like, I had to go to war with myself. I had to love myself before I could help anybody. I can't put out content about like how to be a good person or why you should be a good person when I'm not a good person. Like, it wouldn't sit right with me. The universe will humble me and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And at the end of the day, humans are incredibly impressive at realizing when shit's fake. Like, if you're actually not a good person telling people they should be a good person, the universe will sniff it out. Humans will sniff it out. So like, I had to fall in love with myself. And it's a battle every day. Like, as positive as I try to be and as much as I try to help people, there's days where I'm like pissed at myself. I get upset at other people. I get annoyed at other people. Of course I do. I'm a human. But it's through that where it's like being able to back off and be like, okay, why am I mad at myself? Why am I mad at this person? Why am I annoyed at this person? Then I go through, well, did I skip my routine? Am I stressed? Is something going on outside of work? Am I like off on content, or me and my brother fighting? Like, there's so many things that go into it that I think people don't understand, where they're like, well, I'm just mad today. Why are you mad? Because at the end of the day, if you're healthy, your family's healthy, like, you have an opportunity to change your life. And like, that is like what I always grab onto, is every single day I wake up, I have an opportunity to change my life, to help somebody, to get a little closer to my dream. And that's what keeps me going. And it's hard. It's a marathon, not a sprint, is like the best expression I can ever tell somebody in life. Like, with science, if you take care of yourself, like, fuck, we're going to live to like 100, 120. Like, people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. Play the long game. It'll work out.
I know you've mentioned your brother quite a lot during this, and would love for you to give him some flowers as well. And like during that time when you're together in COVID, like you say that he kind of, I guess, sparked your entrepreneurial journey.
I would say that, I don't know if it was like one moment. It was like a combination of like day after day, where I eventually was like, I need to like attach myself to him, was really what it was. Because like I like kind of started with, like, my dad calls us yin and yang. I'm very much like health focused, always trying to work on myself. Whereas like he's kind of like, has like that fuck you mentality, very entrepreneurial, doesn't need anybody, doesn't need a job, like he'll figure it out. And for myself, I'd never thought of myself in that way, and like that light. It was such a different perspective that I hadn't had in my life, and especially like someone that close, when like all my friends were getting jobs, where I was like, I can learn something from him. Like, he can like help me, and he was really what sprung me into like being more confident in myself. And like through that, it was kind of that switch of like us being like, we should just like do business together. We should make content together. Like, we should make this family brand. Like, without Joshua, I would not be here. I would not be making content, most likely. And I would not have this vision for life that I want to create without him. Like, I owe him everything. I truly think he saved my life. Not like I was like going to commit suicide. Like, I've never had those thoughts, but like, by saving my life, he helped me find my passion. He helped me find who I was. Because at the end of the day, if you're not dying to live, you're dead. So me being able to live a life that I actually enjoy, that there's nights where I'm like, fuck, I have to go to sleep right now. Like, I want to stay up. And like, then I get up in the morning, I'm like, let's go get it. Being able to live that life majority of the time is like, that's actually winning. Like, that's actually winning. Because at the end of the day, when you're chasing something, you're going to detach from the process. And when you detach from the process, you're going to blow by the finish line that you thought you wanted through just falling in love with it. The process is actually what I love. And like, we do these weekly vlogs, and it's literally like a diary entry of our life. And like, to have that, to me, is like so special. And like that, and the fact that I'm already thinking about that is like, we won. And giving him flowers, it's like, without him, like I said, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't want to do any of this. Like, if he wanted to quit tomorrow, I would be like, fuck. Like it would hurt. I don't want to do this without him.
Love that. I want to touch back on people that are unhappy within their lives. I feel that a lot of the time, people within themselves are unhappy, and they'll try to fill that hole by, say, getting into a relationship with someone to try and essentially cover up their like own insecurities and own unhappiness. When deep down they're not happy and they're just using that other person essentially as a getaway. So, from your perspective, why is that dangerous?
You know, I'll add another layer to that. It's other people, it's drugs, it's alcohol, it's watching TV, it's always going out with friends. Like it's all those things, right? It's like filling that void because people don't want to go to war with themselves. To give like more context, like my past ex, I was doing that. She was filling a void for me. And that's why I wasn't a good boyfriend. Like cheated a ton, and that was part of like this reborn process that I had to like go through and like become a completely different person where like I'm like I cannot believe I was even doing that. But it's so hard when you're in the moment to be like I'm coping with this person. I'm coping with smoking weed, doing drugs, going to the club, always out with friends, watching TV all the time. It's hard to realize that. Like it's truly hard. But through that, you have to like it was what I touched on. You have to go to war. Eventually, I think somebody who's destined for greatness will wake up. Period. Stop. I think there's people that are actually chosen to make a difference in this world, and those people will wake up and through all those struggles and wrongings and failures, that is what makes them great because it's easier to relate to them. They have real experience. And I would say it just goes back to energy. Like if you're in a relationship, if you're going out with friends, when you lay your head on the pillow at night, if you're not pumped about the next day, you're probably doing something wrong. If you're out with friends and you're like not in the moment, you're just there to be there, like there's probably something wrong. But that's like all part of like this whole conversation. It's just being conscious and self-aware that so few people actually have.
I wanted to throw in a quote that I actually think you tweeted at the start of the year, and it was life is hard, but we make it harder by seeking comfort and easy things. By pushing ourselves outside the comfort zone, you find clarity and fulfillment in life.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Can you double click on that?
People think their comfort zone is actually where they should be, and the comfort zone is how you live an unfulfilled, miserable life. And doing things that you're running into your fears that scare you to death, you realize your fears actually aren't that big. And you'll probably be like, why was that even scary in the first place? And then two, it's, well, I can do anything now. Like nothing matters. And like through that process of the best thing I ever did was getting out of my comfort zone. People think I'm crazy for this. Every day I wake up, first thing I do is I walk to the shower and take a freezing cold shower for a minute to 2 minutes and feel like I'm going to die. I hate it every day. I do it literally like I maybe miss like 1, maybe 2 days a month. I've been doing this for like 3 years. Like think about that. And every single day I do it, I get like anxiety from it. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then it's on. I'm in it, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. Then I turn it off, and I'm like, that was the best thing I've ever done in my life. And obviously, there's a ton of health benefits with it and everything. But like, running into your fears is a superpower. It is, and I think as a society, we don't lean into that enough. And I would encourage anybody to find out the things they're scared of and just chase after them. You're scared to make content because you think you're ugly, you hate your face, you hate your voice. You should 100% make content and make it every single fucking day until that fear goes away. And then you're going to realize that everybody hates their voice. Everybody thinks they're ugly on camera. No one wants to look at themselves because you're too close to it. But the average person is going to be like, that's great, they're making content. Or they're going to be like, I don't care. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, you got to do things for yourself.
100%. In a society that promotes instant gratification, what role does delayed gratification play in being successful?
I think it's the key. It goes back into habits. You're doing something for 5 years with a little bit of results, but not what you want to do. But that 5.5 year mark is when you actually reach your result, right? As a society, we don't want to wait 5 years for anything. We barely want to wait 5 minutes for anything. And I'm like not trying to be like a hypocrite. There's times where I'm like, I want this shit now. With that, like you want that now, but you also gotta be like, I gotta be patient. I haven't done it enough. I've been making content semi-consistently for 2 years. How the fuck am I gonna be Joe Rogan? Like, if I did it for 20 years, super consistently, and it didn't happen, then maybe I suck at making content. And it kind of goes back to what I touched on earlier. It's setting super long goals that are going to take 20, 30, 40, 50 years to reach. Then you don't worry about it. It is about being patient. It is about delayed gratification. It is about going to the gym and working out and meditating and journaling and reading and taking a freezing cold shower I never want to do. And everybody wants it now. Like as a society, we just have to lean into things that are hard, that take time.
Yeah. And I think like, even with this podcast, like in my mind, I'm thinking that I want to see what this is like in 5 years' time. And that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of consistency. But even in 5 years' time, there's no guarantee that it will be quote unquote successful. It's doing it very often consistently, putting in the work for a chance that it might work or like it might be successful. What is the driving force behind why you do what you do?
The driving force has to be obviously my brother. I say my brother Joshua because we make the content together, but it's really all my family. I'm trying to create a legacy. Like, truth be told, I'm trying to have the best life for myself. Obviously, I want to have a family one day for them. I think the driving force is really my family.
Great answer. And I really enjoyed this conversation.
I love it.
Really appreciating you taking the time today. For anyone listening, if you haven't followed Zachary yet, you need to. At Zachary Owings 2 on Twitter /X and IG. All the links will be in the description, including, of course, the Real O Show, where you can catch him and his brother do the weekly podcast episodes and also the vlog. I'm a fan of a vlog, to be honest. Like, it's short and sweet, and I feel like I get a bit of a insight, fly on the wall experience into your life.
It's a journal entry. Bottom line. Yeah, this is going to be a big podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to follow us, to leave a review, and to connect with us on our socials.